Jonathan Carver, Gustavus Hines, Edward D. Baker, the names that surround the ceiling of these halls, these hallowed halls, are the founders of our state. They own, for the most part, real estate. If they were here today discussing this bill, do you think that they could have imagined the day would come that the government says when you could build a house on your property and when you cannot build your house on your property?
First, I read the original measure that was overwhelmingly supported by the people, and particularly overwhelmingly supported by the people in my district. Next, I read the version of this bill that we're voting on today, and finally, I ask myself one simple question. Does House Bill 3540B retain the intent of the people's will as they voted in Measure 37? Now, to answer this simple question, you have to know that I received House Bill 3540B on Tuesday evening and have been trying to make heads or tails of it. I've attempted to follow the legalistic dodgeball of its language, and after a substantial deliberative process, I've answered my simple question: does House Bill 3540B retain the intent of the people's will? The answer is, like the question, simple: no.
Colleagues, I had two claims, Measure 37 claims, that were pending, getting ready to be filed, and I didn't file them. I felt like that we would be able to resolve Measure 37 in the legislative process, or certainly through a period of time through this process somehow, that we would get something done that would actually resolve the issues for property which we have adjacent to the City of Ontario and our farming operations. But let me just call to your attention a couple of situations. The Dorothy English, again, the poster child of Measure 37, is a concern that I had, but and she'll lose all of her rights under Measure 37, is my understanding now, and goes back to goes back to Senate Bill 100 basically, and away we go, and Dorothy English would lose her rights, and that's of grave concern to me. Another of grave concern is my neighbors who surrounding our farm adjacent to the City of Ontario did file the claims, did go to their legal representatives, and spent virtually thousands of dollars. One of those was my close personal friend, Tommaso Nishihara. And Tom was a great real estate developer years ago, coming in with the camps in Minidoka and during the war. And Tom actually filed has a farm that surrounds us on a couple of sides, and actually had been developing it. And out of 120 acres, had sold off 13 sites. 13 2-acre sites on that farm, and folks, I'm here to tell you that there's no water issues of concern. That the folks just drill their well, and the domestic amount of domestic water that we're talking about using, because it's not legal to bring up more than a certain amount of water for your domestic use anyway. But in that process, here is Tom's farm adjacent to our farm, with homes on the 13 different lot sites out of the 60 or 70 lots that he had developed and had approved in that process, that all went away under Senate Bill 100. And Tom went through the process of filing all of this, and I'll never see him again. He's passed away in this process while we've been in session. And I'm not sure what's going to happen with Tom's farm now. But I know he can't farm it. I know his tenants couldn't farm it because of the homes that were scattered around it. And I don't think that Mrs. Nishihara will probably continue in this process. So it leaves that claim as an unknown. I'm not sure what I'm going to tell my constituents who put out this kind of money, thinking that their claims would be resolved 180 days later after the December filing date.
Thank you. What is needed to be fixed in Oregon is not a ballot measure that passed in 51 of the 60 House districts represented in this chamber. All 29 Republican House districts passed Measure 37, including Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas counties. And of course, that old familiar number that we've heard so much, 61% of the people of Oregon who voted for this bill. What needs fixing is not Measure 37. What needs fixing are our state land use laws. Measure 37 needed clarification and streamlining. House Bill 3540 really doesn't do either effectively. It kills Measure 37 and gives it a slow and very painful death.
It takes courage to create a legacy. This is not an answer. I'm the granddaughter of two pioneers of this great state. I asked this legislature to create a state where we can all enjoy living. This bill doesn't even come close to solving this problem. Please join me in defeating this referral and send it back to committee, not the voters. Thank
But
you.
you made a statement that we had a question previously. Could you guarantee this body that this will be referred to the voters?
Representative, it is not in my power to make any guarantee about what happens in this building in a process. I have a representative with one vote. I'm going to cast that vote today for House Bill 3540 to refer this to the people. What happens on the other side of the building is in the hands of our 30 senators.
Good Representative. I notice we have similar districts as I look at this green sheet that was on all our desks as far as the number of or percentage of voters who voted yes on Measure 37. We are each at 64%. And I'm wondering what you're going to tell the people in your district who have spent thousands of dollars on their Measure 37 claims if House Bill 3540B should pass.
Well, there's no question that voters in my district approved Measure 37. There's also no question that I've received a lot of response from voters in my district asking for a reconsideration of Measure 37. So what I say is that we should send it back to the voters and let them make that decision.
Follow-up.
Follow-up question, do you? No.
Question 2.